Today we're going to discuss about the storage topics. Today we're going to discuss about the database, and today we are going to discuss about the DevOps tools, various DevOps tools, what we have accordingly. Okay, so let's start with AWS storage. So yesterday we discussed about the compute. Today you see that foundation services, storage, and database. We'll discuss. We'll try to cover partially networking also and get going. So yesterday, from yesterday's sessions, anyone have any questions as such? Any questions? I'm audible to everyone, right? Okay. See here. Primarily, I'll put it in this way. Let's say you have app servers, and you know the microservices concept, right? So in microservices, we have 20 microservices. In the SOA concept, service-oriented architecture, only we had a app server, database server, and web server. There were only 3 layers. But in a microservices, we have a multiple microservices. So multiple web server, multiple web app server, and database server. So now let's say if you have a 20 microservices and 20 microservices you want to run it in AWS. So each microservices you will run in the multiple boxes, correct? For HA, you let's say feature one you are running independent and running in a 5 boxes, 5 EC2 instance. So for that you need a one load balancer, correct? Correct. So if you look at this here, you have a 20 microservices. So in that case, you need a 20 load balancer actually, correct? Right? Yeah. So what we have here is application load balancer. Okay. Application load balancer, what they say, you don't have to have a 20 load balancers externally. Okay. Externally available to outside. You have it one load balancer. Now, how this works? So application load balancer works in a way, it redirect to the target group. Okay, target group. Now this target group, it can be depends on your the target group, that the one which you configure, depends on HTTP and HTTPS. So that means what basically you are running on those servers on HTTP or HTTPS, which port and stuff like that. So anytime whenever you run any application, that has to be on some certain port, right? Whether it's a web application, not application. But important thing is it should be HTTP. So here what you have here, to avoid the multiple load balancers, network load balancers for the public, we have a one application load balancer, and from there internally we redirect to the target group. Now the question is, what are the difference here? So primary difference is rules actually. Here, you can redirect different target groups, depends on the rules. So I don't know whether you have seen it or not, but let me just go here and EC2. I don't know, I have load balancer right now, but I can create one here. And here you create application load balancer. And somewhere here, this is the routing rule. Okay. So in a detailed, here you can specify add listener. See here. So what we are saying, hey, any traffic received from 80, any traffic received to 81, 80 any traffic received to 82, and HTTP and HTTPS, and this should go to this target group. This should go to this target group. This should go to this target group. So if you look at this here, the protocol is HTTP. So what is this? So here, whenever you make a request, uh, this should be like this, and domain name something like this, or HTTPS. So here protocol is HTTP and HTTPS. Now, whereas in the network, it is a TCP. It is a TCP. So this is the way you can configure application load balancer. So here, let's say this is a microservices 2, microservices 1, microservices 2, microservices 3. So one load balancer itself will help you to address all these things. Are you understanding now? Yes, that is there. But in a network load balancer, it is a one-way actually. Listener and whatever you transfer to, that's a one-way. So that's the advantage of this one. Now, application load balancer is done at the application layer or in a OSI model. Application layer means this is a one application running actually, and network load balancer is done at the uh, network layer. Got it? Yeah. So this is the stuff. So let's move on. Any other questions anyone have? Okay. So today we are going to discuss about storage section first, then followed by database, then followed by networking, and then DevOps tool. So we have to finish all this stuff today. So let's get started. So in AWS, we have these kind of options. We have block storage, object storage, archive storage, and gateway solutions. Okay, these are the primary storage options we have. You see here, get comfortable with the namespace, I mean, that naming convention. So here we have Amazon S3, we have a Glacier, we have a EBS, we have a EFS, and some of the snowball related stuff, and storage gateway. Uh, Here, now the important thing is what kind of storage you want for storing your data. So here, if you want the block storage, you have to go for EBS. EBS means elastic block storage. And here, second type which you see, Amazon EC2 instance store. Basically, every instance you run, you get a some default storage, a default volumes. That volumes you get it for not for storing the data, but you get it for running the EC2 instance. So last time, if you remember, you were assigning some volumes, right? 8 GB or 20 GB or something like that. That is, we call it a instance store. Means that storage is being used to run storage. I mean, compute means VMs. So you should not use that for the storage because many times it's inferior. Okay, so you will lose that data, anything you store over there. Now, there's another kind of storage we have. It's a file storage. So in that category, we have an EFS. So file storage, if you want to understand in a simple way, have you heard about the NFS, network file system? Network file system. So network file system means the file system which you access through the IP address network. Simple to understand. Any storage type which you are accessing through network, IP addresses and all, that's a NFS, network file system. So this Amazon EFS is also somewhere close to that. Okay. Now here in EBS, if you want to put a context block storage, so in your laptop you have the one storage what you have is a block storage. that is not connected to the network, but it's connected to system bus and also SAN and also. Are you understanding now at a high level? Now, so here one you can access through the operating system. That's a block in a simple way. A file which is through network, and third one is object storage. Object storage, we have options like S3 and glaciers and all. So what is object storage? Object storage is like your Google Drive. Okay, Google Drive is your object storage. So Google Drive, any files or folder you have, you can access to HTTP, correct? All of you? All of you? HTTP, you can use that, right? Correct now? Guys, are you able to hear me? Yeah. So here object storage. So guys, request you all to be responsive, because sometimes I think that internet got disconnected or something like that. So it's also good to interact with each other because we are learning online. So block means you block storage. We have option which is called EBS, file storage which we have a EFS, and object storage we have a S3, which is a very popular. So S3 is accessible on the HTTP, EFS is accessible through the network, and EBS is accessible mounted to even inside a system to the file system. So these are the storage services. So what is a block storage? So block storage, sometimes referred to as a block level storage, is a technology that is used to store data files on SAN, storage area networks, or cloud-based storage environment. Developers favor block storage for computing situation where they require fast, efficient, and reliable data transportations. So here it's very simple use cases. Understand in a simple context. Let's say if you have a drive attached to your laptop compared to drive attached to your network, and then you are accessing through the network, or compared to HTTP, which one will be faster? Tell me. Yeah, so it will be faster because of it's attached to your computer unit, and second will be network, third will be HTTP. So accordingly, you have to decide. So this is the block storage. So block storage, if you put it in the different context, Inferior, the one which you have used it yesterday to run any CPU, I mean any instance. Then EBS we have, and EFS. Actually, EFS is powered by block storage. Okay, understand that. But attached to the network. That's the thing. So you can consider this as a block storage also, but you have to consider this as a file storage also. Why? Because it's a network attached storage. Okay, so EFS is powered by block storage but connected through the network. So that's the thing. Now instance store, what we have is inferior. That means if you terminate the instance, or if you stop the instance, then this instance store will that will get erased actually. So not in every scenarios. Sometimes you stop the EC2 instance, and if you're using the general purpose SSD and all, then it will not be erased. But if you go for the very high end different types of storage, then it will be erased. So you have to check the documentation of AWS, and which is getting erased, which is not getting erased and all. But more or less, AWS is saying you should not use instance storage for the any storage. It is only for running the EC2 instance for operating system. Now EBS, the one which is a topic further now, is like it has a multiple types actually. It's like a GP SSD means general purpose SSD. PIOPS means provisioned input output, per second. Throughput optimized HDD, cold HDD, and magnetic. So earlier we were using SDDD, now we are using SSD. And again, you can decide what is the performance of the storage you want. That's called IOPS, input output per second. So here you can provision your speed of the storage also. But for time being, we'll go with the SSD just for the learning purpose. But if you want to run any high-end application and you want high performing disk, you can buy from AWS. EFS, the same thing, powered by block storage and but access to the network. Okay, so let's understand the Inferior. So Inferior, which is basically for used for instance store, is a temporary block storage, free storage with the EC2 instance. That means if you're running the EC2 instance, it will be free for you. But again, one more thing, there are certain limitations for it. So it's not like you are going for 100 GB, 200 GB or something like that. There are certain limitations of it. So for Windows, I think it's a 30 GB, and for Linux, it's a 8 GB free, I guess. So you have to check the documentations also accordingly. Data is lost when instance is terminated or stopped. So terminated, for sure, you lose the data. Again, conditional, you have to check, uncheck all this. By default, it's checked. So that's the reason we are saying lost. But this is a data is not lost actually when you stop the instance. Why? Because it depends on the what kind of storage you are using. So general purpose, the AWS is trying to say, hey, you should not store anything in Inferior. Okay, so else you that's your risk actually, because if you stop, there are certain types which they delete the data actually. By the way, these all you can configure whether the when the instance is terminated, data should be deleted or not. All these things you can configure, but in a little bit of extra check you have it. Most of the people ignore it, and there is no SLA, as access speed is not guaranteed. So yes, AWS is having no SLA for it, service level guarantee. That means it will be accessible, all the stuff like that. So if you have a data storage and there's no SLA, and even though if you stop instance is running, please hear me out. Instance is running, and let's say that hardware has a certain problem, that storage has a certain problem. So and you have stored the data, they will not guarantee it. So they will simply say, hey, that was infernal, and you can go and get a new compute unit and attach the block storage whatever you had into that same thing. So there's no SLA. Access speed is not guaranteed. Buffers, caches, scratch data, etc. is also available for it. Replicated data for load balancer and web server. So when to use this one for the production purpose, when you want to replicate the load balancer web server data. Okay. Now EBS. The second thing was EBS. EBS, we can call it a volume also. So here does not need to be attached to instance. Yes. So EBS is like you, if you want to use it, you have to attach it. But if you don't want to use it and just keep it for the backup and all, so you don't need to attach it. Cannot be attached to more than one instance at the same time. So here, let's say cannot be attached to more than one instance time at the same time. This is also there is a condition supply. There are one scenarios in which one EBS you can attach to the multiple EC2 instance, but in a general scenario you cannot attach to the more than one instance. The one scenario where you can attach only certain storage to the multiple instance is possible using the multi-attach, but it's not available for most of the storage type. So please do not take this as a general. The statement which I'm making here is basically general statement, but there are some ways to override this behavior also, which is available at AWS. So usually, yes, the storage you cannot attach to the more than one instance at a time, and also can be transferred between availability zones. So availability zone, I hope you all remember. So you can transfer from here to there, there to here. EBS volumes data is replicated across multiple server in an availability zone. Encrypted of EBS, encryption of EBS data volumes, boot volumes, and snapshot is possible, and designed for annual failure rate and between 0.1% to 0.2, and SLA is pretty high. You can see that 99.95%. That means AWS is giving you SLA for that the storage this much. So this is the EBS characteristics. Now, if you see that EBS also, you have a multiple types. So some of these are like SSD, and another one is IOPS SSD, provisioned IOPS SSD. Again, we have a magnetic also, but right now here it's not discussed. So if you go for SSD, which is general purpose SSD, so what is the size of it? Maximum size you can get up to 16 TB, starting from 1 to 16 TB. But here PIOPS you can get it minimum 4 to 16. Throughput also you can see that there are some certain difference. By the way, pricing is also different. Okay, and here max IOPS per volumes, max IOPS per instance. You see that some changes here. Throughput almost same per instance. And API name is GP2 and IO1. More detail you can also find in the documentations. Now here we have a comparison between throughput, optimized HTTP and cold HTTP and magnetic. So look at this here. Some of the use cases here we have infrequent data access for streaming, big data for logs, cannot be a boot volume. So this cannot be a boot volume. It has to be SSD. Cold HTTP, throughput oriented for large volumes of data. Lowest storage cost is important and cannot be a boot volume. And magnetic, infrequent data access. The size, throughput, IOPS per volume, IOPS per instance, and throughput per instance you have in front of you, and the API name is also accordingly. Okay, so depends on that you design your storage need and get it done. Most of the time in these sessions we will use one option, which is general purpose SSD. Okay, so increasing IOPS performance, yes. So you can multiple stripped GP2 or standard volume typically rate 0. Multiple stripped PIOPS volume typically rate 0, and function of the guest OS. So if you increase the IOPS, you can do that while creating an EBS. These are the advantage you can get it. Now there's our optimized instance are there. So if you want to, dedicated capacity for Amazon EBS input, EBS optimized instance are designed for use with all EBS volume types. Max bandwidth, this is the max or IOPS range, you can get it this one. And GP SSD with 10% of baseline and burst performance 99.9% of the time. PIOPS within the 10% of provision performance 99.9% of the time, and additional pricing is applied on this. So if you go for the optimized EBS, you'll have to pay a little bit more. You can also create a snapshot also. So snapshot means you can take up a backup of EBS and in a snapshot. Now this snapshot usually you can leverage to S3. So here when you want to take a backup of EBS, you can point in time snapshot, support incremental snapshot, build only for the charged block, change block, deleting a snapshot, remove only the data not needed by an other snapshot. EBS leverages S3 for snapshot storage. You can store in a S3, which is much cheaper. Now, these are some of the features for EBS snapshot feature: resizing EBS volume, sharing EBS snapshot, copying EBS snapshot across, and region laging loading. Okay, so yeah, so these are the cycle for volumes actually. So when you want to introduce the volumes, these are the cycles which we have. So look at my screen here. First of all, you have to create a volumes. You may create a volume from 1 GB to 16 GB. I'm talking about GPSSD, general purpose SSD. After that, you have to attach to the instance, and after that, attach and use in the instance, and then create a snapshot and detach. So these all things which I'm going to show you as part of the demo. So creating instance, attaching to the instance, and then attached and in use means mounting basically and using it, and create a snapshot means create a backup and detach. Are you understanding this workflow life cycle? All of you? Okay, so I'll not go and complicate too much again for this. and S3. So before getting into the S3, I'll talk about demo. So let's get start the demo first. So here, guys, look at my screen very carefully, and you have to do something similar. Right now, I do not have any instance running. So what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to create user training, and the password is this one. Okay, so look at my screen. I go to IAM. Done. So for today's access is this is the one I'm going to share. So guys, let's look at the demo first very carefully. And AWS console. I'm going to log in, sign in, and ID is this one. And username is training, and password is this one. Okay, so first thing, I'll go for very minimal one EC2 instance. And okay, are you able to see my screen, all of you, right? Guys, can you look at this here? There's a EBS option, Elastic Block Storage, and here you see volumes, and here you see snapshot. Snapshot is the basically backup of volumes. So here volumes, here you have snapshot. So go to the volumes, and here you see in Ohio region, you don't have any volumes right now. And here I'll go to dashboard, and I'll create one instance in front of you. So launch instance and go for, let's say, Ubuntu. And here I'll go for only one CPU, 1 GB RAM. That's more than sufficient. One. Now here you can see little bit more options. Slowly you get this comfortable purchasing option. And here, go to the end of it, user data is there, right? So guys, what I'm doing, and just to test that user data, touch, and here emp rajesh.txt. Are you comfortable with this simple command?
Hello everyone, if you would like to access the remaining videos of this playlist of 50 plus more tools which are coming under DevOps, DevSecOps, SRE, DataOps, GitOps, etc. Kindly become our channel members by clicking on the joining button. You would have access to 100s of playlists and 1000s of videos lifetime access with this membership. Enjoy.
Thanks for watching. Want to study further? Join our training programs today.